Okay everyone, welcome back to another IELTS writing video. This time we'll be looking at the area of topics. Now this is an interesting one because one of the biggest worries I hear from students before they go into an IELTS writing exam isn't actually so much to do with their English capability and more to do with the fact that they do not know what questions they're going to receive. They don't know, especially in writing task 2, they don't know what kind of question they're going to get. And this is a very legitimate worry because it's true that your question could be related to anything from social issues to the environment to social media. It really could be about anything. And then of course you have your different types. So maybe you have an opinion-based essay, something that solves a problem, or even perhaps just comparing advantages and disadvantages. So obviously in this writing course we're going to cover different parts of these task types, and we have been doing that so far. But today we're going to look into what you can do when you're presented with particular topics, how you can break down your points, and how you actually put them into the body paragraphs of your essay. Okay. Now, in the lesson on structure, we looked at the overall structure of an IELTS writing task 2 essay. And we especially looked at the introduction paragraph. So we looked at how to put together background information and a thesis statement before you start writing. Well, in this lesson, I won't be able to, prepare you for any particular question, unfortunately. But what we can look at is how you can categorize your ideas, turn them into full sentences, and then turn those into full paragraphs. Okay, so now another thing that I should mention is that you'll probably have a few ideas to put together before you start writing. I talked about how it's very important to plan your structure before an essay, but it's also good to write down your ideas for your body paragraphs before you start writing. Now, in the actual marking criteria, it says nothing about how many ideas you need to put in as long as these ideas are well represented and well explained with good examples. So with that in mind, we're going to look at how we can do these things. And again, without further ado, I will share my screen with you now. Okay, so before we go into what is in the picture on the screen, I would just like you to imagine that you've just sat down to do your IELTS writing exam, and you've been presented with the following writing task 2 question. So I'm going to read it out to you now. Some people believe that living in a city is preferable to living in the countryside, while others strongly disagree. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. Okay, so as you've just heard, this is an opinion-based essay, and you need to look at both sides of the argument. Now, just to let you know that countryside is a word that's commonly used in the UK, and it basically means anywhere outside of big towns and cities, so rural areas, okay? Now, as I've said in the structure video, you do need to plan your overall structure. But then it is also important to go into what arguments you are going to make. So as you can see on the screen here, I have divided the pros and cons of living in a city, and I've put that to the left. And then we're going to compare that with pros and cons of living in the countryside. So it's always a good idea to bring up whatever pros and cons you can think of before you start writing your paragraphs, because you might find that you might have maybe a few too many arguments, or maybe you have not enough arguments to actually go into in detail. So this is a good way of laying it out so you can make your decisions before you start writing. Now then, from the two areas, let's say that you want to highlight that living in a city usually involves having good public transport. So let's see how we can take that idea, flesh it out into a sentence, and then take it further as your paragraph develops. And we shall do that now. In order to turn your ideas into full sentences, first of all, we need to look at the area of topic sentences. Now, let's read through the definition together. So, a topic sentence is usually used at the beginning of a paragraph and introduces the reader to what the paragraph will be about. It contains two parts, the topic or noun phrase and the controlling idea or verb phrase. This sentence narrows the scope of your paragraph and is then followed by examples. Now, as I said at the beginning of this lesson, you don't just need to put one idea into a paragraph. That can be quite limiting, but you do need to give yourself enough time to develop the idea and to provide examples. So in the previous screen, from those notes, one idea that I had as a pro of living in a city was the good public transport. So I've followed the definition above and I've translated that into the sentence here that I have labeled best. So the public transport found in cities, that's your first clause or part of a sentence. That is your topic or that is your subject, specifically the public transport found in cities. And that is a noun. It is, nouns if you're not sure are things, places, people, names, etc. Then you have your controlling idea. Now, to describe a noun, you need adjectives, and there are actually more adjectives here to describe those nouns, but it still contains the verb is, so it follows on describing the initial topic. Now, this is a good introductory sentence. Now, this seems quite basic, but you would be surprised how many students get off on the wrong foot by either starting a paragraph with a sentence that's too general or even too specific, as you can see down here. So, for example, living in a city has a number of advantages. Okay, you can, put this somewhere, but you do want to narrow down to an idea and develop it as soon as you can, and space those ideas out logically. And at the same time, even though I always say that writing tasks are quality over quantity, you don't want to end up just using all of your ideas or naming all of your ideas very briefly in a sentence like here at the bottom. So living in a city provides better transport links, more job opportunities, schools, lots of entertainment, and superior shopping facilities. Those are 5 points just already gone and not, elaborated on in just one sentence. So this really highlights the importance of giving yourself the time to develop one idea at a time. Okay. Now I've labeled that this sentence is incomplete, but actually if you linked this to the first one, that wouldn't be so bad. But you don't need to make comparisons immediately afterwards. You can be a little flexible with your body paragraphs, but either way, let's move on to the next part. Okay, so this video has really just been a brief introduction into how to turn your ideas into full sentences for the Writing Task 2 essay. However, this is just a small part of what you have to do in your body paragraphs. And of course, the next step will be developing your ideas and providing examples for them. Now, if you're working on my website and you've bought this writing course, you're going to see 2 exercises below. The first of which is going to practice topic sentences, as we just looked at in the previous clip. But the second exercise is going to show you how an argument develops, and you'll be putting a paragraph into the correct order, and this will help you with seeing how these ideas can be developed with examples. Now, of course, if you haven't bought my course, please, as always, read the description below or look on elsewhere on my website if you're already on it. And please consider buying this course to really make the most of these videos. Otherwise, that's all from me. And as always, thank you very much for joining me. And I hope to see you in another video very soon.